Today, we'll be talking about a very interesting topic. How to structure rent to own. 4 months ago, I did a video on this same topic, and I will urge you to watch that video before watching this one. The topic of that video is called Rent to Own, My Perspective and Opinion. Rent to own is also called a lease purchase or a lease option. You enter into an agreement with a homeowner, the landlord, to rent their home with an option to buy that home in the future, usually between 2 to 5 years. In a rent to own, there is what we call rent credits. Let's say, for example, you're paying $1,200 a month. You can have an agreement with the landlord. The $200 each month will go towards your future purchase. So at the end of the year, you have $2,400. The landlord will keep this money in an escrow account. At the end of the lease, this money will be used as down payment when you qualify to buy that home. So in this case, let's say, for example, you did a 5 years rent to own agreement. After 5 years, you will have about $12,000, which will go towards your down payment. Rent to own is considered one of the cash machines in the real estate investment world. Why is lease to own considered a cash machine? Number one, in a rent to own, the landlord, they make more money. With the rent to own agreement, there is what we call a non-refundable upfront option payment. That payment is usually from 3 to 7%, depending on the agreement with the landlord. This non-refundable option payment is for the landlord to put in their pocket. They're not going to give you back. If you look in a traditional rent situation, what happens? You give the owner a security deposit, and at the end of the lease, you have to give back that security deposit to the renter. But in a rent to own, the landlord get to keep that upfront money, non-refundable. Number two, the landlord, because you're working directly with the landlord, there are no real estate agents involved. So the landlord pays no commissions to agents. Commissions sometimes can be expensive. The landlord can sell the house at the maximum appraised value. There are no landlord headache. You are basically responsible for all repairs in that home, because the landlord is telling you, you are learning to become a homeowner. This is your house. So every repair in that house has to fall on you. Number four, this is interesting. About 95% of tenants in a rent to own agreement do not qualify to buy the house at the end of the option. 95%. I'm being modest here. So the landlord get to do what? They keep the upfront non-refundable payment, and they also get to keep what? The rent credit. And what do the landlord do? They put another sign out. Rent to own. The next client comes in, they go through the same process, they pay the non-refundable option payment, they are paying rent credit, and the same thing. So you can use that house. That's why we call it a cash machine in the real estate investment world. And why do people who find themselves in a rent-to-own situation, why don't they qualify to buy the house? Because the rent-to-own is not structured correctly. And this is the topic of our video today: how to structure rent-to-own. C2C is a real estate mentorship community. All we do here, we talk about your finances, we talk about real estate because we understand it is at the foundation for your family's success. Thank you if you have already subscribed to our channel. If you have not done so, please do so, and we appreciate you. One of the biggest advantages in a rent-to-own is the fact that you get to move in immediately. Escrows, there's no title companies. Once you reach an agreement with the landlord, you move in. So why do I think rent-to-own will become very popular within the coming months? Under the CARES Act, there was an extension of the eviction and foreclosure moratorium till December 2020. Landlords can still kick you out despite this eviction moratorium. The Texas eviction moratorium expired May 2020. Remember, the moratorium did not say the landlord cannot take you to court. The landlords are taking tenants to court. The only difference is that the court is not enforcing those evictions. The Texas moratorium expired May 2020. So between June and September, there have been massive evictions in Houston before the CDC came out with the federal eviction moratorium, which they passed on September 4. It was too late for some Houston residents. About 5 million Americans are in forbearance, which has also been extended to December 31st, 2020. Once this forbearance will expire, people will have a backlog of mortgages to pay. And it would depend at the discretion of the mortgage company. Because although the CARES Act says could take forbearance, the government did not come into a reasonable terms of agreement with the mortgage companies on how they can enforce. So in so many states, the mortgage companies have the right to do whatever is in their best interest. Once the forbearance is over, we will see what? We will see massive foreclosures. The $600 expanded federal unemployment benefits expired July 31st, 2020. 11 million Americans still out of work. We will see a gazillion of evictions and foreclosure whenever these moratoriums will expire. The National Apartment Association and landlords, they now have a lawsuit in the federal court against the CDC and the Trump administration. They are saying extending eviction moratoriums is unconstitutional. So there's fight from every angle. That is why I'm thinking lease to own will be a very lucrative business for landlords and will give you an opportunity to still live in a house. If you have been living in a house with a big yard, with air facilities, your kids are used to that, to living in a home, you can't take them back to an apartment. An article on the New York Times back in June had predicted that by September, there will be about 19 to 20 million renters who will be facing eviction. So rent to own will become a huge opportunity for real estate investors and also will give former homeowners an opportunity to still enjoy the benefits of home ownership rather than take their families to an apartment. But we must structure it correctly so it is a win-win situation for both the landlord and for the renter. Buying a home is one of the most complicated legal transactions you will ever engage in your lifetime. Most of the times, in a rent-to-own agreement, the landlords, they put all the protections for themselves, depriving the tenants from their rights. Most of the time, the landlords, they draft the rent-to-own agreements and just present it to the tenants, and all the tenants will sign. What can we do to make sure we structure a correct rent-to-own agreement that will benefit us in the future? Also protects you, the renter, so you don't end up in the category of the 95% of people who default on these agreements, leaving the landlord the sole winner. Number one, consult with a real estate attorney. The real estate attorney will do what we call a title search. Most of the times, investors will take homes from landlords on a seller financing agreement, and they come now to the market and they are leasing out these homes on rent-to-own terms because they understand that most people will not qualify to buy those homes. So they do it to collect that upfront money. The real estate attorney will do a title search to determine if the person who is present to you with a rent-to-own agreement, if they are the rightful owner of that house. The attorney will also review the contract to make sure it has the provisions that will protect you. Attorney will make sure the house has no water, electricity, taxes, or foreclosure liens. Because if you do a rent-to-own on a house that has a lien, then you automatically inherit those liens and you have to pay them out of pocket. I've seen situations where the house is on foreclosure, but the landlord is giving it to you on rent-to-own because they want what? They want that upfront non-refundable payment. Once you enter into that agreement and the house is very soon, you get a letter in the mail from the sheriff's office. House will be in a public auction on this day and this day, and guess what? You're stocked. You either have to cure the foreclosure or they foreclose on you and you look for another home. So it's very important. Consult a real estate attorney before you get into a rent-to-own agreement. Number two, do a home inspection. It is your home. Do your due diligence. Do an inspection and present that inspection to the seller. So the seller will make sure that they do all the repairs. Because remember, once you get into that home, the repairs are on you. They're not on the seller. So make sure the seller can do those repairs before you get in. And if the seller refuses to do those repairs, I advise you to walk out. Look for the next landlord. Ask for a copy of a certified home appraisal. The rent-to-own agreement the contract will have a sales price for the property. How do you make sure that when you qualify for a loan tomorrow, that loan will be able to pay for that property? Seller has to do an appraisal, and you have a right to ask for that appraisal to make sure that the price that's on the contract is the value of the house. Number four, negotiate a lower upfront option payment. The repairs in the house will all be on you. Negotiate a lower upfront payment. So in case something happens tomorrow, you have not given all of your money to the landlord. Usually, landlords who are serious and want you to succeed, they will work with you. But the people who tell you it's 7% and nothing else, there's a little suspicion there. So negotiate a lower down payment. Make sure on the contract you include your right to cure the payments in a timely manner in case you default. Because what most landlords do in a rent to own, when you default 1 month, they will go ahead and they will kick you out, depriving you of your right as a tenant. But if you have the option to cure those payments, let's say for example, 3 months you were not able to pay because of sickness or you lost your job. Once you get back on your feet, you should be able to cure those payments and still stay in that home. But what happened? Once you don't pay for 1 month, the seller, they go ahead and they kick you out. And they kick you out because why? They are looking for the next tenant who will sign another contract and give them another option fee. Be very careful you have that option to cure the payments in a timely manner. Number 6, include the legal process of ejection on the contract. Ejection is the legal process to evict you from a property that you are renting. But most of the times, the landlord will skip the process of eviction and go to a landlord-tenant court where it is faster for them to kick you out. So make sure that the contract has a provision for ejection, that in case you default, the landlord will follow this due process of eviction. Number 7, make sure you get with a local loan officer so you can draw a plan. Together you can draw a plan on how you qualify for a mortgage in the future. There are different kind of options for obtaining a mortgage. There's the FHA. There are even down payment assistance programs like Sweet Homes. There is NACA. Depending now on your state, there are options for down payment assistance as well. So make sure that you have a loan officer who understands these options and that they can draw a plan for you so you can be working with them towards you qualifying for a loan. Number 8, you also want to get with a credit repair company. If you have a bad credit, make sure you seek the advice. Your loan officer can refer you to a credit repair company. You are working on your credit the same time that the loan officer is putting structure for you to be able to qualify for that loan. This is how a rent-to-own is a cash machine for most landlords, because some people who don't even own these homes, they get these homes on a seller financing option and they come out and they're renting out to people and making millions on the rent-to-own. And that is why rent-to-own is called one of the cash machines in the real estate investment world. But if structured correctly, rent-to-own provides a huge opportunity for people who cannot qualify for a loan for one reason or the other. Instead of you renting and losing all that money in renting, it is better to do a rent-to-own so you still have the comfort of living in a home, and part of the money that you're paying, the rent credit is going towards your down payment. And when you qualify, you'll be able to get that house. So rent-to-own, if structured correctly, is a win-win situation for the renter and for the landlord. C2C is a real estate mentorship community. All we do here, we talk real estate and your family's finances, because we understand it is at the foundation for your success. Thank you for all your great comments. Thank you for sharing our content. We will keep bringing you new content every Friday. Thank you. Thank you.